That's right, I sold everything. But as you may have guessed by now, I'm not talking about stocks. Let me explain. Alright, so maybe I haven't sold everything, but I have gotten rid of a lot of things lately and pretty much changed my whole relationship with material possessions. And if you've watched my channel before, you're probably thinking at this point,
okay, that's great, but what does that have to do with investing?
Well, let me tell you. So you may know that on this channel, I usually talk about covered call writing, which is a strategy that involves first buying 100 shares of a stock and then selling a call against those shares to collect a premium, or in other words, to generate income on a weekly basis. But probably the most common question I get is, how do you afford to buy 100 shares of a stock in the first place? And it definitely can be hard when you're just starting out, especially if you're trying to sell covered calls on strong established stocks, as I think you should be. So that's why it's important to make regular deposits into your portfolio. And as I've mentioned many times before on this channel, it's really the fastest way to grow your portfolio when you're just starting out. But in order to do that, you need to have extra money to invest in the first place. And that's where your savings rate comes in, which if you're not familiar, is just the percentage of your income that you save once all of your expenses are paid for. So it's easy to think to yourself, well, once I get a higher paying job, I'll increase my savings rate. Or once I buy this one thing that I really want, then I'll increase my savings rate. But once you get that job or you buy that thing, you'll likely find that you're still not satisfied. So you spend more money and buy more things, and before you know it, you're saving less money than you were before, and you're still not happy. So this phenomenon of raising your standard of living as your income increases is referred to as lifestyle creep. And it's especially easy to fall victim to in today's society, as product advertisements are everywhere, and with the popularity of social media, it's easier than ever to compare yourself to others. And believe me, I've certainly fallen victim to lifestyle creep as well, but more recently I've realized that material possessions aren't really what makes me happy. In fact, they often do the opposite, as the clutter tends to stress me out and makes me feel guilty about the money that I'm spending. That was until about a year ago when I came across something called Minimalism, along with a book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And the title is not an exaggeration. What she talks about really can change your life. So if you're not familiar with minimalism, it can be defined in a lot of ways. But the definition that I like the most is that a minimalist owns only the things that add value to their life. And in doing so, they can free themselves from the sort of consumeristic rat race of constantly chasing nicer and nicer things, and they're able to find happiness in the more simple things in life. So while Marie Kondo doesn't directly use the term minimalism, and as far as I know, the concept hadn't really even been popularized yet at the time she wrote the book, that's essentially what she's talking about. The premise of her method is to start by disposing all of the things that you don't need, and only after that point can you actually start organizing what you own. So despite what many people think, it's not about deciding what to discard. It's actually about deciding what to keep, which is an important distinction because it implies that really most things aren't worth keeping, and it forces you to look at everything you own with a much more discerning eye. So the criteria that Marie Kondo uses is to keep only things that spark joy. But again, regardless of the criteria you use, whether you decide to keep things that spark joy, things that add value to your life, or even something more objective like only the things you've used within the past year, the point is that you'll probably be surprised by how many things you actually don't need. And by getting rid of them, you can free up some space in your home and in your life for the things that truly matter. Because when you own less things, you have a lot less to worry about. You have less to maintain, less to clean, less to organize, and less distractions from what truly matters. Which after all is what this channel is all about. Being able to free up your time so that you can focus on the things you truly care about. And until I started reducing my possessions, I really didn't realize how large of an impact it would actually have on me. So the point of minimalism is not to get rid of everything you own and then proceed to sit on the floor all day staring at the wall, as some people seem to think. Items like a couch, a TV, and even a nice pair of speakers likely bring joy to your life and add value, so you shouldn't force yourself to get rid of them. And similarly, if you have hobbies that require equipment, for example, you may like to go skiing, play sports, or even just have certain books that you like to reread regularly, you should certainly keep those things as well. Instead, minimalism is about getting rid of the things you don't use, like the papers and knickknacks in your drawers that you haven't looked at in years, the clothes in your closet that you tell yourself you're gonna wear someday, but realistically you never will, or the equipment you bought for hobbies that you tried to get into months or years ago, but that never stuck. We all have those types of things, so by being more discerning and decluttering the things that you don't need, you'll naturally force yourself to think harder about future purchases as well. So you'll be more realistic about whether this thing that you really want to buy right now is something that you actually need, or whether it's something that you're just gonna lose interest in a few months and end up getting rid of. So this is where the real financial benefits come in, because as you adopt a more minimalist mindset, you'll change the way you think about material possessions and about new purchases, and you'll find yourself spending a lot less money and not even thinking twice about it. And on top of all of that, as a result of reducing my possessions, I've come to find joy in living in a smaller space as well. So much so that in my recent move, I actually downsized to a smaller apartment. Not necessarily to save money, although that's a nice bonus, but because when you live in a smaller space, you're able to be surrounded by only the things that you actually enjoy and find value in. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with living in a larger space if that's what you find value in, but I think it's important to question whether or not you truly need it. Because when you live in a larger space, you're not only paying more for the space itself, but you also tend to buy more things to fill that space, and often those aren't things that you really need. For example, if you have an empty room, you might throw a desk or a dining table or a bookshelf in there. But if you already have an office elsewhere in your home, do you really need 2 offices or 3 dining tables? And if you never touch those books on the shelf, are they really worth having? So the financial benefits of living in a smaller space go further than just the real estate itself. And with the money you save, you can of course invest it, but you can also choose to live somewhere nicer and or in a more desirable location. And I think for most people, that'll bring a lot more joy to their lives than simply being able to own more stuff. Now with that said, I know this video is a bit different than my usual content, but it's a topic that's made a huge impact on my life, financially and otherwise, so I hope some of you can benefit from it as well. And if you're new to my channel or just want a refresher on how I generate income from the stock market, be sure to check out my full covered call tutorial right here. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you in that next video.